Okay. Now, again, we are in the second book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series called The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. And we are beginning Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Hello? Yes? Megadodo Publications, home of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The most totally remarkable book in the whole of the known universe. Can I help you? Said the large, pink-winged insect into one of the 70 phones lined up along the vast chrome expanse of the reception desk in the foyer of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy offices. It fluttered its wings and rolled its eyes. It glared at all the grubby people cluttering up the foyer, soiling the carpets and leaving dirty hand marks on the upholstery. It adored working for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It just wished there was some way of keeping all the hitchhikers away. Weren't they meant to be hanging around dirty spaceports or something? It was certain that it had read something somewhere in the book about the importance of hanging around dirty spaceports. Unfortunately, most of them seemed to come and hang around in this nice, clean, shiny foyer immediately after hanging around in extremely dirty spaceports. And all they ever did was complain. It shivered his wings. What? It said into the phone. Yes, I passed on your message to Mr. Zarniwoop, but I'm afraid he's too cool to see you right now. He's on an intergalactic cruise. It waved a petulant tentacle at one of the grubby people who was angrily trying to engage its attention. The petulant tentacle directed the angry person to look at the notice on the wall to its left and not to interrupt an important phone call. Yes, said the insect, he is in his office, but he's on an intergalactic cruise. Thank you so much for calling. It slammed down the phone. Read the notice, it said to the angry man who was trying to complain about one of the more ludicrous and dangerous pieces of misinformation contained in the book. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is an indispensable companion to all those who are keen to make sense of life in an infinitely complex and confusing universe. For though it cannot hope to be useful or informative on all matters, it does at least make the reassuring claim that where it is inaccurate, it is at least definitively inaccurate. In cases of major discrepancy, it's always reality that's got it wrong. This is what the gist of the notice is. It said, the guide is definitive. Reality is frequently inaccurate. This has led to some interesting consequences. For instance, when the editors of the guide were sued by the families of those who had died as a result of taking the entry to the planet Trawl literally, it said ravenous bug-bladder beasts often make a very good meal for visiting tourists, instead of ravenous bug-bladder beasts often make a very good meal of visiting tourists. They claimed that the first version of the sentence was the more aesthetically pleasing, summoned a qualified poet to testify under oath that beauty was truth, truth was beauty, and hoped thereby to prove that the guilty party was, in this case, was life itself, for failing to be either beautiful or true. The judges concurred, and in a moving speech held that life itself was in contempt of court, and duly confiscated it from all those there present, before going off to enjoy a pleasant evening's ultra-golf. Zaphod Beeblebox entered the foyer. He strode up to the insect receptionist. Okay, he said. Where's Zarniwoop? Get me Zarniwoop. Excuse me, sir? Said the insect icily. It did not care to be addressed in the manner. Zarniwoop, get him, right? Get him now. Well, sir, snapped the fragile little creature, if you could be a little cool about it. Look, said Zaphod, I'm up to here with cool, okay? I am so amazingly cool, you could keep a side of meat in me for a month. I am so hip, I have difficulty seeing over my pelvis. Now, will you move before I blow it? Well, If you'd let me explain, sir, said the insect, tapping the most petulant of all the tentacles at its disposal. I'm afraid that isn't possible right now, as Mr. Zarniwoop is on an intergalactic cruise. Darn, thought Zaphod. When's he going to be back? Back, sir? He's in his office. Zaphod paused while he tried to sort this particular thought out in his mind. He didn't succeed. This cat's on an intergalactic cruise in his office? He leaned forward and gripped the tapping tentacle. Listen, Three Eyes, he said. Don't you try to outweird me. I get stranger things than you free with my breakfast cereal. Well, just who do you think you are, honey? Flounced the insect, quivering its wings in rage. Zaphod Beeblebrox or something? Count the heads, said Zaphod in a low rasp. The insect blinked at him. It blinked at him again. You are Zaphod Beeblebrox? It squeaked. Yeah, said Zaphod. But don't shout it out, or they'll all want one. The Zaphod Beeblebrox? No, just a Zaphod Beeblebrox. Didn't you hear I come in 6 packs? The insect rattled its tentacles together in agitation. But, sir, it squealed, I just heard on the sub-ether radio report it said you were dead. Yeah, that's right, said Zaphod. I just haven't stopped moving yet. Now, where do I find Zarniwoop? Well, sir, his office is on the 15th floor, but he's on an intergalactic cruise. Yeah, how do I get to him? The newly installed Sirius Cybernetics Corporation Happy Vertical People Transporters are in the far corner, but sir, Zaphod was turning to go. He looked back. Yeah, he said. Can I ask you why you want to see Mr. Zarniwoop? Yeah, said Zaphod, who was unclear on this point himself. I told myself I had to. Come again, sir? Zaphod leaned forward conspiratorially. I just materialized out of thin air in one of your cafes, he said, as a result of an argument with the ghost of my great-grandfather. No sooner had I got there than my former self, the one that operated on my brain, popped into my head and said, Go see Zarniwoop. I've never heard the cat. That is all I know. That and the fact that I've got to find the man who rules the universe. He winked. Mr. Beeblebrox, sir, said the insect in awed wonder. You're so weird. You should be in movies. Yeah, said Zaphod, patting the thing on a glittery pink wing. And you, baby, should be in real life. The insect paused for a moment to recover from its agitation, and then reached out a tentacle to answer a ringing phone. A metal hand restrained it. Excuse me, said the owner of the metal hand in a voice that would have made an insect of a more sentimental disposition collapse in tears. This was not such an insect, and it couldn't stand robots. Yes, sir, it snapped. Can I help you? I doubt it, said Marvin. Well, in that case, if you'll just excuse me. 6 of the phones were now ringing. A million things awaited the insect's attention. No one can help me, intoned Marvin. Yes, sir. Well, not that anyone's ever tried, of course. The restraining metal hand fell limply by Marvin's side. His head hung forward very slightly. Is that so? The insect said tartly. Hardly worth anyone's while to help a menial robot, is it? I'm sorry, sir, where's the percentage in being kind or helpful to a robot if it doesn't have any gratitude circuits? And you don't have any? Said the insect, who didn't seem to be able to drag itself out of this conversation. I've never had occasion to find one, Marvin informed it. Listen, You miserable heap of maladjusted metal. Aren't you going to ask me what I want? The insect paused. Its long, thin tongue darted out and licked its eyes and darted back again. Is it worth it? He asked. Is anything? Said Marvin immediately. What do you want? I'm looking for someone. Who? Hissed the insect. Zaphod Beeblebrox, said Martin. He's over there. The insect shook with rage. It could hardly speak. Then why did you ask me? It screamed. I just wanted something to talk to, said Marvin. What? Pathetic, isn't it? With a grinding of gears, Marvin turned and trundled off. He caught up with Zaphod approaching the elevators. Zaphod spun around in astonishment. Hi, Bailman. Hey, Marvin. Marvin! How did you get here? Marvin was forced to say something which came very hard to him. I don't know. But one moment I was sitting in your ship feeling very depressed, and the next moment I was standing here feeling utterly miserable. An improbability field, I expect. Yeah, I expect my great-grandfather sent you along to keep me company. Thanks a bundle, Granddad, he added to himself under his breath. So, how are you? He said aloud. Oh, fine, said Marvin. If you happen to like being me, which personally I don't. Yeah, said Zaphod as the elevator doors opened. Hello, said the elevator sweetly. I am able to be your elevator for this trip to the floor of your choice. I have been designed by the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation to take you, the visitor, to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, into these, their offices. If you enjoy the ride, which will be swift and pleasurable, then you may care to experience some of the other elevators which have recently been installed in the offices of the Galactic Tax Department, Booby-Loo Baby Foods, and the Syrian State Mental Hospital, where many ex-Sirius Cybernetics Corporation executives will be delighted to welcome your visits, sympathy, and happy tales of the outside world. Yeah, said Zaphod, stepping into it. What else do you do besides talk? I go up, said the elevator, or down. Good, said Zaphod, we're going up. Or down, the elevator reminded him. Yeah, okay. Up, please. There was a moment of silence. Down's very nice, suggested the elevator hopefully. Oh, yeah? Super! Good, said Zaphod. Now, will you take us up? May I ask you, inquired the elevator in its sweetest, most reasonable voice, if you've considered all the possibilities that down might offer you? Zaphod knocked one of his heads against the inside wall. He didn't need this, he thought to himself. This, of all things, he had no need of. He hadn't asked to be here. If he was asked at this moment where he would like to be, he would probably have said he would like to be lying on the beach with at least 50 beautiful women and a small team of experts working out new ways they could be nice to him, which was his usual reply. To this, he would probably have added something passionate on the subject of food. One thing he didn't want to be doing was chasing after the man who ruled the Univers, who was only doing a job which he might as well keep at, because if it wasn't him, it would only be someone else. Most of all, he didn't want to be standing in an office block arguing with an elevator. Like, what other possibilities? He said wearily. Well, the voice trickled on like honey on biscuits. There's the basement, the microfiles, the heating system. It paused. Nothing particularly exciting, it admitted, but they are alternatives. Holy Zarquon, muttered Zaphod. Did I ask for an existential elevator? He beat his fists against the wall. "What's the matter with this thing?" he spat. "It doesn't want to go up," said Marvin simply. "I think it's afraid." "Afraid?" cried Zaphod. "Of what? Heights? An elevator that's afraid of heights?" "No," said the elevator miserably. "Of the future." "The future?" exclaimed Zaphod. "What does the wretched thing want? A pension plan?" At that moment, a commotion broke out in the reception hall behind them. From the walls around them came the sound of suddenly active machinery. We can all see into the future," whispered the elevator, in what sounded like terror. "It's part of our programming." Zaphod looked out of the elevator. An agitated crowd had gathered round the elevator area, pointing and shouting. Every elevator in the building was coming down very fast. "Marvin," he said, "just get this elevator to go up, will you? We've got to get to Zarniwoop." "Why?" said Marvin dolefully. "I don't know," said Zaphod, "but when I find him, he'd better have a very good reason for me wanting to see him." Modern elevators are strange and complex entities. The ancient electric winch and maximum capacity 8-persons jobs bear as much relation to a Sirius Cybernetics Corporation Happy Vertical People Transporter as a packet of mixed nuts does to the entire west wing of the Syrian State Mental Hospital. This is because they operate on the curious principle of defocused temporal perception. In other words, they have the capacity to see dimly into the immediate future, which enables the elevator to be on the right floor to pick you up, even before you knew you wanted it, thus eliminating all the tedious chatting, relaxing, and making friends that people were previously forced to do while waiting for elevators. Not unnaturally, many elevators imbued with intelligence and precognition became terribly frustrated with the mindless business of going up and down, experimented briefly with the notion of going sideways as a sort of existential protest, demanding participation in the decision-making process, and finally took to squatting in the basements, sulking. An impoverished hitchhiker visited any planets in the Sirius star system these days can pick up easy money working as a counselor for neurotic elevators. At the 15th floor, the elevator doors snapped open quickly. 15th, said the elevator. And remember, I'm only doing this because I like your robot. Zaphod and Martin bundled out of the elevator, which instantly snapped its door shut and dropped as fast as its mechanism would take it. Zaphod looked around warily. The corridor was deserted and silent, and gave no clue as to where Zarniwoop might be found. All the doors that led off the corridor were closed and unmarked. They were standing close to the bridge which led across from one tower of the building to the other. Through a large window, the brilliant sun of Ursa Minor Beta threw blocks of light in which danced small specks of dust. A shadow flitted momentarily past. Left in the lurch by a lift, muttered Zaphod, who was feeling at his least jaunty. They both stood and looked in both directions. "You know something," said Zaphod to Martin. "More than you can possibly imagine. I'm dead certain this building shouldn't be shaking," Zaphod said. "It was just a light tremor, though, through the soles of his feet, and another one." In the sunbeams of the flecks of dust danced more vigorously. Another shadow flitted past. Zaphod looked at the floor. "Either," he said, not too confidently, "we've got some vibro system for toning up your muscles while you work, or..." He walked across to the window and suddenly stumbled, because at that moment his Jujanta 200 superchromatic peril-sensitive sunglasses had turned utterly black. A large shadow flitted past the window with a sharp buzz. Zaphod ripped off his sunglasses, and as he did so, the building shook with a thunderous roar. He leaped back to the window. "Or," he said, "this building's being bombed." Another roar cracked through the building. "Who in the galaxy would want to bomb a publishing company?" asked Zaphod, but never heard Martin's reply, because at that moment the building shook with another bomb attack. He tried to stagger back to the elevator. A pointless maneuver, he realized, but the only one he could think of. Suddenly, at the end of the corridor, leading at right angles from this one, he caught sight of a figure as it lunged into view. A man. The man saw him. "Beeblebrox, over here!" he shouted. Zaphod eyed him with distrust as another bomb blast rocked the building. "No!" called Zaphod. "Beeblebrox, over here! Who are you?" "A friend!" shouted back the man. He ran towards Zaphod. "Oh yeah?" said Zaphod. "Anyone's friend in particular, or just generally well-disposed people?" The man raced along the corridor, the floor buckling beneath his feet like an excited blanket. He was short, stocky, and weather-beaten, and his clothes looked as if they'd been twice round the galaxy and back, with him in them. "Do you know," Zaphod shouted in his ear when he arrived, "your building's being bombed?" The man indicated his awareness. It suddenly stopped being light. Glancing round at the window to see why, Zaphod gaped as a huge, slug-like, gunmetal green spacecraft crept through the air past the building. 2 more followed it. "The government you deserted is here to get you, Zaphod," hissed the man. "They've sent a squadron of Frogster fighters." "Frogster fighters?" muttered Zaphod. "Sarquon." "You get the picture?" "What are Frogster fighters?" Zaphod was sure he'd heard someone talk about them when he was president, but he never paid much attention to official matters. The man was pulling him back through a door. He went with him. With a searing whine, a small black spider-like object shot through the air and disappeared down the corridor. "What was that?" hissed Zaphod. "Frogster Scout Robot Class A, out looking for you," said the man. "Huh, yeah! Get down!" From the opposite direction came a larger black spider-like object. It zapped past them. And that was a Frogster Scout Robot Class B out looking for you. "And that," said Zaphod, as a third one seared through the air, "a Frogster Scout Robot Class C out looking for you." "Hey," chuckled Zaphod to himself. "Pretty stupid robots, eh?" From over the bridge came a massive, rumbling hum. A gigantic black shape was moving over it from the opposite tower, the size and shape of a tank. "Holy photon, what's that?" breathed Zaphod. "A tank," said the man. "Frogster Scout Robot Class D, come to get you." "Should we leave?" "I think we should." "Marvin!" called Zaphod. "What do you want?" Marvin rose from a pile of rubble farther down the corridor and looked at them. "You see that robot coming towards us?" Marvin looked at the gigantic black shape edging forward toward them over the bridge. He looked down at his own small metal body. He looked back up at the tank. "I suppose you want me to stop it," he said. "Yeah." "While you save your skins." "Yeah," said Zaphod. "Get in there." Just so long, said Marvin, as I know where I stand. The man tugged at Zaphod's arm, and Zaphod followed him off down the corridor. A point occurred to him about this. Where are we going? Zarnywhoop's office. Is this any time to keep an appointment? Come on. And that, my darlings, is the end of chapter 6.